Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a necessary hammer, maybe, to one of the most powerful, persistent anxieties out there, the fear of being alone.
Hmm.
For so many of us, the moment things quiet down, the office buzz stops, the family chatter fades, the phone screen finally goes dark, we don't really feel peace.
No, it's often more like, well, a low-grade dread, isn't it? Or this feeling that we're not quite measuring up, or, that classic FOMO, fear of missing out.
Exactly.
And it's a really deep psychological hurdle, I think. Our modern world, it almost seems designed to make it worse.
How so?
Well, we've absorbed this really powerful, sometimes destructive cultural script, right? Being surrounded by people equals success, happiness. Being alone, that means failure, rejection somehow.
Yeah, it's like you're only alone if nobody wants you around.
Precisely. And that narrative forces us to see alone time as like an illness, something you need to cure right away, usually with distraction. Grab the phone, turn on the TV, anything but silence.
And that is exactly why we're doing this deep dive. We've been working with some really insightful source material, particularly the art of solitude and self-discovery.
It's fascinating stuff.
It really is. And it's not just about, coping with being alone. It's about transforming it, making it powerful.
Right.
So our mission today is pretty critical. We need to really understand the huge difference psychologically, emotionally, between loneliness and solitude.
Mm-hmm.
And crucially, figure out the practical steps you can take to turn that time alone, whether you choose it or it's just required, into a real chance for self-development, for finding inner peace.
Absolutely. And the core idea in this material, it's kind of revolutionary for how many people live day to day.
Yeah.
Solitude isn't presented as this burden you just have to tolerate until the next text message or meeting pops up.
Mm.
It's framed as an active thing, a potent, profound source of strength. And honestly, for anyone looking to really optimize their, let's say, cognitive and emotional resources, recognizing that potential is probably the single biggest mindset shift we can make.
Okay, let's dig into that right away, this idea of strength, because it seems to hinge entirely on the words we use, the lens we look through when we're by ourselves.
Exactly.
So we're jumping right into section 2, the crucial distinction. And the source material frames this difference so well, I think, as the cage versus the home.
Ah, that metaphor. It's incredibly effective, isn't it? It really sticks with you and defines the whole journey the material lays out.
So explain it, the cage versus the home.
Okay. So the authors draw this vital line using two specific terms. There's akalapan, which we translate roughly as loneliness,
Okay.
and then there's ekant, which is true solitude. And the key point is, these are not synonyms, not even close. They're almost like polar opposite emotional states, even if the physical situation being alone is the same.
Right. Let's start with the negative then, the one most of us probably default to, sadly. Akalipan, loneliness, the cage.
Yeah, the cage, according to the sources, when you feel akalapan, you feel trapped. You're restless. There's this intense craving for someone else to be there.
It's being alone, plus that awful feeling that you shouldn't be alone, that something's wrong because nobody's there to, validate you, occupy you.
Exactly. Loneliness, the cage, it's defined by fear. Fear of the silence, maybe fear of what thoughts might come up if you're not distracted. And often this underlying sense of being broken, somehow incomplete.
Very.
The defining trait of a kalapan is that your energy is always pointed outwards. Always. You're desperately looking for the key to unlock the cage.
But you think someone else holds.
Right. You think it's held by other people.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a text back, an invitation, some kind of external praise or affirmation. You're essentially a victim of your aloneness, just waiting for rescue.
And what's really tricky about the cage, as you mentioned, is you can feel it even when you're not physically alone.
Oh, absolutely. You can be in a crowded room at a huge party, surrounded by people, and still feel that profound akalapan. Because the physical presence doesn't touch the internal state.
It's an internal feeling of lack.
An unfulfilled yearning, exactly. Now, contrast that with ekant, solitude, which the source calls the home.
The home. That sounds much better already.
It feels better, doesn't it? This state, ekant, is defined by choice, by intention. It's a deliberate state, a welcomed one. You're not just killing time until someone shows up. You are actively choosing to be present with yourself.
Okay, so it's an active engagement.
Yes. The home is where you can genuinely encounter your authentic self because you've intentionally, maybe just for a short while, shut out the external world's demands.
You create space.
You create the space to actually hear your own emotions, your real desires, the parts of you that get drowned out or suppressed by everyone else's opinions and expectations. You're not waiting to be rescued from yourself. You are the architect building your inner experience.
That feels like a huge shift. Just that framing. It's moving from passive victim to active participant.
It's a massive shift in, well, locus of control. And the sources really emphasize this core idea. From the soul's perspective, they use the phrase, Atmakidushti say, being alone is never, ever a failure or a punishment.
It's an opportunity.
Exactly. It's the necessary condition for depth, for reflection, for real inner growth.
So, okay, let's make this practical. If someone listening finds themselves alone right now, maybe their commute is silent or they're in a quiet house, how does knowing this difference help right now? How do you make that pivot from the cage to the home in the moment?
It starts, I think, with just noticing the feeling, acknowledging it, and then consciously applying this new framework.
Okay.
So if you feel that immediate itch, that compulsion to grab your phone, fill the silence with anything, music, a podcast, scrolling.
That's the cage reaction.
That's the cage reaction kicking in, the fear of Akalapa bubbling up. The shift to ikant requires you to pause just for a second and reframe. Okay, I'm not stuck here feeling bad. I am choosing to use this moment to connect with myself.
Oh, okay. So there's an internal declaration.
It is. And that simple reframing instantly changes the texture of the experience. It moves from being this draining obligation, this thing you have to endure, into a potentially restorative, constructive investment in yourself.
I really like the focus on required alone time, too. You know, that hour you have to spend focused on a solo work project, or when your flight's delayed, or maybe you work remotely and the evenings are long.
Right, those times often feel imposed.
Exactly. And if we see that as a burden, as the cage, we waste so much mental energy just fighting the silence, feeling resentful. But if we reframe it, as this source suggests, using the ikant lens, suddenly that time isn't an energy drain anymore. It could actually become an energy source.
It becomes deliberate self-care, potentially.
Yeah.
And just think about the difference in the psychological output, the quality of what comes out of that time.
Right.
When you're operating from the cage, from Ekalapan, whatever you produce, maybe it's a creative idea, maybe a decision, maybe just how you feel at the end of the evening is probably tinged with anxiety, with a sense of rushing to escape.
Trying to get it over with.
Exactly. But when you operate from the home, from a cant, the output is more likely infused with, well, clarity, authenticity, maybe even peace. This mental reframing, honestly, it's the most actionable insight from this foundational concept. It really is the difference between just surviving your alone time and actually using it for, like, self-mastery.
And that concept of mastery that leads us perfectly into our next section, doesn't it? Because choosing solitude actively like this, that seems to be the only way to really achieve those deeper internal outcomes the sources talk about.
Precisely.
We're moving into the function of the internal compass, self-discovery and acceptance.
Right. So solitude, ekant, is presented as basically the mandatory prerequisite for what the sources call the journey of self-discovery. The term they use is kud ki koj.
Kud ki koj. Okay.
And this is where the real purpose of choosing ekant becomes clear. It's not just about feeling better in the moment. It's about finding something.
And why? Mandatory. Why can't we discover ourselves surrounded by people?
Well, the sources argue it's because of the sheer volume of external noise we live in. We are constantly swimming, drowning almost, in a sea of other people's opinions, expectations, judgments.
And that noise isn't just like loud music, is it? It's much broader.
Oh, yeah. It's digital notifications, it's consumer advertising telling you what you should want, it's political arguments demanding your allegiance, it's that endless comparison cycle on social media.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't deliberately, intentionally create some distance from all that, the sources say you actually lose the ability to hear your own true inner voice.
They're like static.
Exactly. That external noise acts like overwhelming static on your internal radio frequency. It just completely obscures what the source calls your internal mapping.
Internal mapping. Okay, what does that mean?
You need the quiet to actually conduct this mapping. So what does kud ki koj, this self-discovery, actually involve? It means really getting clear on your personal operating system, like discerning your genuine likes, not the ones you picked up from your friends or partner, your true dislikes, not just the ones society says are okay to dislike, and, maybe most importantly, identifying your core values, what truly matters to you.
Can we focus on that for a second? Identifying core values. Because I think a lot of people, assume they know theirs, but then under pressure, or maybe in solitude, they realize those values were sort of inherited.
That's a crucial distinction the material implicitly makes. An inherited value might sound like my success is defined by my job title and how much money I make, because maybe that's what your parents valued or what your industry rewards.
Right.
An authentically chosen value, one you might actually map out during a period of account, might be something like, my success is defined by the creative contribution I make and the stability and health of my relationships.
And the only way to tell the difference
Is to remove the external reward system, at least mentally. Take away the praise, the paycheck, the social media likes, the parental approval, and see what still resonates with you in the quiet. Does that drive still feel true? Solitude provides that necessary environment, that kind of stress test for your values.
Okay, so Kuki Kaj is like doing a personal audit, making sure the map you're using to navigate your life actually reflects the terrain of you, not someone else.
Beautifully put, yeah.
And once you have that internal map, once you start to really know yourself on that deeper level, the sources say that is the essential starting point for true self-acceptance. The term used is Atma Swikriti.
It's the only pathway to genuine acceptance, they argue. You can't really forgive what you haven't acknowledged seeing, right? And you certainly can't accept what you don't fully understand or recognize within yourself.
Makes sense.
This deep knowing then allows you to move into the next crucial stage, which the sources call swaprem. And this translates roughly to self-love and acceptance, but with a radical edge.
Radical, okay. We hear self-love thrown around a lot, usually involving, I don't know, bubble baths or buying yourself something nice.
Right, often tied to external pampering.
But this sounds different. How is swaprem radical according to the source material?
It's radical because it goes way beyond simple self-esteem, which is usually conditional, right? I feel good about myself because I got the promotion. Swaprem, as described here, demands that you accept all of yourself, not just the shiny, successful, easy-to-love parts.
Okay.
It explicitly includes accepting your negative traits, your imperfections, the term used is asamanatenan, and even your specific weaknesses, kamzorian. This is the bit people really, really struggle with.
Why is accepting weaknesses so hard? Is it just because our culture tells us those are the things we need to fix immediately, or hide, or feel ashamed of?
Precisely that. We're conditioned almost from birth to be hardest on ourselves for those exact points of vulnerability, our flaws, our struggles. But the source material argues something quite different. It says true self-compassion is born when you start fighting the reality of who you are in this moment.
So acceptance isn't resignation.
Not at all. Accepting a weakness, say, a tendency towards procrastination, doesn't mean passively resigning yourself to always procrastinating. It means acknowledging its existence without judgment, maybe even with kindness and affection towards the part of you that struggles.
Okay.
And that acknowledgement, that self-compassion, is actually the necessary first step before you can effectively change. If you just berate yourself, I'm so lazy, I'm a failure, you get paralyzed by shame.
Right, you just feel bad.
Exactly. But if you can say with compassion, okay, I see I struggle with self-discipline in this area right now, that actually frees up energy. It frees you to think strategically about how to manage it rather than just hating yourself for it.
That makes a lot of sense. The energy usually spent on self-criticism gets redirected towards maybe finding solutions once you accept the starting point.
Precisely. And this whole journey, Kudki Koj, leading to Swaprem, it's fundamentally about learning to listen to your soul's voice, as the source puts it, rather than just constantly trying to conform to standards set by everyone else.
If your whole life is just a performance.
If it's just a performance designed to win applause or avoid criticism from the outside world, you never actually build the muscle of self-trust. You never learn to validate yourself.
And solitude provides the space for that.
Solitude gives you that sacred, quiet space to maybe hear that authentic inner voice again, to practice validating your own inherent worth, completely independent of any external metric, your job title, your relationship status, your follower count. It helps stop that frantic, exhausting effort to measure up.
And replaces it with
the deep, calm knowing of who you are, flaws and all. Accept it.
Okay, so we've really established the why, the psychological need, the philosophical underpinning. Now, for the listener thinking, okay, I get it, but how? The practical application is key. Let's shift into section 4, applied solitude, focusing on the rituals for growth and self-improvement. How do we turn this big idea into something we actually do?
Yeah, And the sources are very clear on this point. Solitude isn't just a state that happens to you when everyone leaves. It's something you actively do.
It's a practice.
It's a practice. It's defined not just by being physically alone, but by spending intentional time with yourself. They call this ekanka abhyas, the practice of solitude.
So like scheduling a workout.
Exactly like that. You have to schedule it, respect that time, assign it some purpose, just like you would a critical client meeting or, a training session at the gym. It needs to be prioritized.
Okay, let's get concrete then. What are the specific rituals the sources recommend for making the most of that intentional alone time? The first one mentioned is meditation. How does meditation fit into this framework of self-discovery?
Meditation is presented as kind of the immediate antidote to all that external noise we talked about.
Right. Calming the static.
Calming the static, exactly. And it's not necessarily about achieving a completely blank mind, which is a common misconception that trips people up.
Yeah, I can never do that.
Right. It's more about creating a little distance from the constant internal chatter. Learning to observe your thoughts and emotions without immediately getting swept away by them, without judging them harshly.
Okay.
So in the context of practicing Ekant, meditation seems to serve two vital functions. First, it helps calm your nervous system, literally recharging your internal batteries. And second, it develops that crucial skill of internal observation.
Seeing yourself clearly.
Yeah, allowing you to witness your own patterns, your Kemsurian weaknesses, your Asamanatane imperfections, but hopefully with more clarity and self-compassion rather than the usual panic or self-criticism.
Got it. And the second key ritual mentioned is journaling. How's that different from just, venting in a diary?
Good question. Journaling, in this context, provides a more structured, tangible outlet for that internal mapping process, the Kudkikaj.
So it's active exploration.
Yes, it's framed as an active conversation with yourself, not just a record of events. The sources suggest using it as a tool to really map out your values, track your emotional responses to things, maybe process past events through that lens of swaprem, self-compassion.
Could you give an example? Like what might you actually write?
Sure. You might use your scheduled solitude time to journal by asking yourself specific critical questions, like, what choice did I make today that felt truly aligned with my core values? Or, what specific weakness am I wrestling with right now, and how could I approach that struggle with a bit more kindness towards myself?
Okay. It sounds like turning your journal into a combination of a personal accountability partner and maybe even a self-therapist.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, it makes that abstract process of Kudkikaj much more concrete and actionable.
Okay. And the third essential practice you mentioned, which feels incredibly relevant today, is deliberately creating distance from social media and all that constant external noise.
Hugely relevant. Yeah.
This isn't about becoming a hermit, is it? It's more strategic.
Oh, absolutely not about rejecting technology wholesale. It's entirely about creating intentional boundaries. The source material seems to recognize that social media, constant connectivity, they are often the primary drivers of a Kalapan, that feeling of loneliness, even ironically when we're using them specifically to connect.
Because they keep feeding us external stuff.
Exactly. They prevent true solitude because they're constantly feeding us external expectations, comparison points, other people's highlight reels. So creating distance might look really simple. It might mean designating 1 hour every evening where your phone is just off or in another room.
Or taking a walk without headphones.
Yes. Just letting there be silence, that intentional silence, that's the space where your own thoughts, your own creative ideas, your sense of purpose can finally bubble up to the surface.
And the sources seem to really emphasize that it's about integrating small, daily rituals of solitude. It doesn't have to be some grand, week-long retreat.
Consistency over intensity. That seems to be the message. Small steps are sustainable steps.
Right.
10 minutes of focused journaling before you go to sleep, or maybe a deliberate 15-minute meditation when you wake up. If you do that consistently day after day, you'll build the muscles of Ekant far more effectively than, say, one ambitious week-long digital detox that you do once and then never repeat because it was too disruptive.
That makes sense. Build the habit slowly.
Build the habit.
And this focus on consistent, purposeful practice ties directly into another critical idea.
Yeah.
Reframing how we even think about time itself. The sources insist that alone time must not be viewed as just empty time. They use the term kalisame.
Yes, kalisame, empty time. That's such a powerful trap we fall into.
How so?
We often categorize any time that isn't scheduled with work or social events as kalisame, basically a vacuum that needs to be filled immediately.
Why do we feel that need to fill it so desperately?
I think it's because the silence, The lack of external purpose or validation in those moments, it triggers that background anxiety of a kalapan, that dread that nothing important is happening, and maybe we're not important if we're not busy. We feel like we're falling behind somehow.
The moment we label time as empty, we basically devalue it. It becomes like the commercial break in the middle of the real show of our life.
Perfectly said. It's just filler. But the sources perform a crucial relabeling. They say, no, it's not empty time. It's development time. It's self-improvement time.
Okay.
This time is dedicated to what they call Bodhneki Prakriya, the process of growth. It's an active, necessary investment in yourself. Just like an athlete needs dedicated time for recovery or specific training drills, we need this time for internal development.
So what specifically should we be investing in during this protected econ time, according to the sources?
The material highlights several key capacities that really seem to require that kind of uninterrupted internal focus. Things like developing personal capacities, maybe learning a new language, or mastering a complex skill that demands deep concentration.
Okay.
Cultivating hobbies, especially ones that are purely for personal enjoyment, not for competition or career advancement. Things that feed your soul.
Like playing music or painting.
Exactly. Fostering creativity, which absolutely demands quiet time for ideas to sort of percolate and connect. And crucially, solidifying your sense of purpose. Your udesha.
The last one, finding your purpose, your udesha. That feels like something you absolutely cannot outsource. You can read all the books you want about purpose, but the actual clarity, the feeling of it, probably only comes when you're alone, quiet, applying your values to your life's direction.
Couldn't agree more. And this purposeful application of solitude, using your econ time to intentionally develop a new skill or clarify your deepest sense of udesha, that is what really validates the source's original bold claim, that solitude is a strength, not a weakness.
Because you're actively building something.
You are actively building a life that is potentially deeper, more resilient, and fundamentally more self-reliant. It transforms alone time from something you just passively endure into time where you are actively upgrading your internal operating system.
Okay, so once you start making that investment, building that internal strength, the sources suggest the positive effects start rippling outwards, right? Impacting everything from your emotional stability day to day to even your closest relationships.
That's right. Which brings us neatly to Section 5, the external impact. Looking at the powerful and positive downstream effects of achieving this kind of internal mastery through solitude.
And the first big one mentioned is emotional freedom and self-reliance. The term used is Atmanirbharta.
Atmanirbharta, yeah. The sources highlight this pivotal realization that often comes through sustained practice of solitude. That true happiness, deep satisfaction, genuine inner peace, they do not primarily stem from external validation, not from other people's approval.
Wow. That realization alone feels like the key to, living life on your own terms. We spend so much mental energy constantly checking ourselves against what other people might think.
We do. Did I wear the right thing? Did I sound smart in that meeting? Is my life looking good enough on social media?
It's exhausting.
It's incredibly exhausting, mentally and emotionally. And it makes your inner life perpetually unstable, doesn't it? Because you're relying on things you can't control, someone else's mood, an algorithm, for friends passing judgment.
Right. Your peace depends on them.
But when you practice ekant, when you cultivate that swaprem, that self-acceptance, you start to establish an internal ownership of your well-being. True inner peace, the source argues, comes from your own understanding, your own thoughts, your own deliberate decisions.
That sounds like the very definition of emotional self-reliance. Atmanirbharta. You become the primary source of your own stability.
You do. You develop this internal reservoir of contentment, of okayness, that isn't dependent on external handouts or praise. And that stability means you're just less vulnerable to the inevitable ups and downs of the outside world.
So if someone criticizes your work, for example,
it might still sting, sure, but it doesn't destabilize your entire sense of self-worth because you've already done the internal work. You've audited your efforts based on your own values. You know your worth is inherent, not granted by others.
Okay. And what's really fascinating, almost paradoxical, is what comes next. This increased comfort with being alone, this internal strength, actually leads to, according to the sources, a profound improvement in relationships. The term is sambandhan mein sudhar. How does that work? Why does stepping away ultimately make us better at connecting?
It seems counterintuitive, right? But the core mechanism appears to be reduced expectations.
Reduced expectations. How so?
Well, think about it. When a person is primarily operating from that state of akalapan, loneliness, the cage, they often enter relationships with a kind of fundamental neediness. They subconsciously expect their partner, their friend, their family member to fill that internal void, to rescue them from the fear inside the cage. And that puts immense, often unspoken, and ultimately unsustainable pressure on those connections.
Right. So if I'm constantly needing my partner to tell me my career choices are okay, or needing my friend to solve my anxiety about the future, I'm basically using them as an emotional crutch.
You are. And while support is crucial in relationships, relying on others to generate your sense of okayness quickly drains the vitality out of the connection. It becomes burdensome.
But when you've cultivated a kink.
But when you are internally comfortable, when you feel, as the source puts it, pour a hole complete in yourself through your solitude practice, you stop looking to others to be the source of your completeness. You're no longer entering relationships from a place of desperate lack, hoping they'll fill your internal holes. You're engaging from a place of genuine abundance, maybe even overflow. You're there to share your wholeness, not demand they fix your brokenness.
That fundamentally changes the entire dynamic of the relationship, doesn't it?
Completely. It shifts from being potentially demanding, maybe even transactional, what can you do for my emptiness, to being truly appreciative, based on choice, connection, and balance.
So you connect because you want to, not because you need to in order to feel okay.
Exactly. When you feel whole, you seek connection as a wonderful enhancement to your already fulfilling life, not as a desperate necessity to survive the silence. That internal completeness you build in écoute leads directly to healthier, more balanced, more sustainable relationships.
The pressure just evaporates.
The pressure on your loved ones to constantly validate you, to manage your emotional state for you, it just dissolves. They can simply enjoy being with you, and you can enjoy being with them without that undercurrent of anxious dependency.
So the paradox holds. Solitude, deliberately stepping away to build your inner world, ultimately makes you better at connecting when you step back into the shared world. You become a better partner, a better friend, maybe even a better colleague, simply because you're not subconsciously relying on them to complete you or make you feel valid.
It really is presented as the ultimate internal investment, one that yields powerful external dividends. By mastering yourself in solitude, you optimize how you show up in the world, ensuring your interactions are rooted in genuine choice and appreciation, not in fear or neediness.
Wow. Okay. This has been a really rich deep dive. We've moved all the way from defining the critical difference between a kalapan, loneliness, the cage,
The cage.
and a cant, solitude, the home. We connected that choice to the deep internal work of self-discovery, Kudki Koj, and that radical self-acceptance, Swafrem.
Right. Accepting the weaknesses, too.
Accepting the weakness. Yeah. Then we got practical, outlining the rituals needed for Ekant Kalahavyas, the practice of solitude meditation, journaling, digital boundaries.
Making it intentional.
Making it intentional. And finally, seeing how that internal strength, that Atmanirbharta, transforms not just our inner state, but our external relationships, making them healthier.
And throughout all those layers, that core argument holds strong, doesn't it? Solitude isn't a sign of failure or something to be pitied. It's framed as a profound source of power, of creativity, of depth.
It's the necessary space to figure out your purpose and live life on your own terms.
We really need to stop seeing alone time as this burden we just have to get through.
And the good news is, making that shift doesn't require some massive life overhaul, does it? The sources really stress the power of small, consistent steps.
Absolutely. Small steps make solitude feel less like a chore and more like a joyful, meaningful part of your actual life.
So what can someone do, like, today?
Start really small today. Maybe practice just a moment of reflective solitude. Take literally 2 minutes to talk to yourself, not in a critical way, but just check in. How am I feeling? What matters to me right now? Connect with those core values.
Okay.
Or maybe dedicate just 15 minutes of that content time tonight to nurturing a personal interest, a hobby, something that feeds your soul, not just your CV.
Right, something just for you.
Just for you. And try maintaining just a small, consistent boundary with the external noise every single day. Maybe the first 10 minutes after waking up, no phone, or the last 10 minutes before sleep. These tiny, consistent rituals. That's how you actively start remodeling that feeling of the cage into your permanent internal home.
The whole conversation has really circled around achieving this emotional freedom, hasn't it? Getting free from those external demands, that constant desperate need for validation from outside.
Becoming emotionally self-reliant, living your life based on the clarity you map out during your solitude.
Which leads us, I think, to our final provocative thought for you, the listener,
Yeah.
to take away and maybe mull over today.
Okay.
We talked about Abner Barta, that realization that your happiness, your inner peace, it's fundamentally your decision. It's generated internally, not granted externally.
Right. The locus of control shifts inside.
Exactly. So think about this. How can you apply that principle of internal ownership, the idea that your satisfaction is your decision, to just one specific area of your life, starting today, where you currently find yourself relying heavily on external validation?
Ooh, that's a good one. Pinpoint one area.
Pinpoint that one area. Maybe it's needing constant praise at work to feel competent. Maybe it's compulsively checking social media likes for affirmation. Maybe it's relying on someone else's good mood or opinion for you to feel okay starting your day. Identify it. And then maybe just take one small, decisive step back into account around that specific issue. Listen for that quiet, genuine voice of soi prem, self-acceptance. And just affirm, even just to yourself, that your peace, your okayness in that area begins and ends with you.
That really is the deepest dive of all, isn't it? Bringing it right into the here and now.
Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive.